Hello world, we are live now. Welcome to the Spark AR workshop. We have Harshita over here, whom I met through the GitHub Campus Expert program. She makes really amazing um, effects using Spark. I have tried her effects out on Instagram, and she has gone beyond using the graphical interface to writing code for designing the effects. She'll be giving an introductory. She'll be taking an introductory workshop on Spark AR today. Over to you, Harshita.
Thank you so much, Param, for that lovely introduction. So, I'll just briefly introduce myself as well. So, I'm Harshita, I'm from NIT Hamirpur. I'm a second year student and I'm pursuing my bachelor's in electronics and communication engineering. And as Param said, I got connected to community building and I got passionate about communities through this program known as GitHub Campus Experts. So I got into the domain of AR/VR, which is augmented reality and virtual reality, around a year back, and I've been exploring it since then. And apart from that, I am also learning UI UX designing these days. I'm trying my hands at game development. So that's about me technically. And otherwise, apart from that, I am avidly into reading books, reading fiction, so I'm always up for conversations which are related to books, which are related to painting. And so that's all about me, technically, and all about me personally. And now I'll head back to the domain, which is AR/VR, augmented reality, virtual reality. So the domain is getting really hyped up these days, especially after Facebook rebranded itself to Meta, and like even my interest got piqued up after this entire metaverse thing coming up. And there's been a lot of debate whether metaverse is good or bad, whether it will be the doom of humanity, or whether it will um, just be the greatest blessing ever. But what I believe that good or bad is yet to be decided. But whatever place which is whatever place is occupied by phones and laptops or screens these days, very soon it will be replaced by AR/VR experiences. And if I'm speaking about AR/VR, I'm also reminded of one like really relevant thing. Like just 2 days back, that is on Republic Day during the parade, there was this tableau by Ministry of Education, and the theme of the tableau was from Vedas to Metaverse. And I guess the presence of the tableau is a testimony to the fact that how far we have come, how we've embraced tradition with modernity, and how far we can go putting this technology to use. So I guess that's all about it. And now I'll just share my screen. So please do let me know if it is visible or not.
Yes, Harshita, it is visible.
All right. There's a slight lag, I guess. All right. So here we'll take a dive into Spark AR. And these are certain points which we'll be covering today. Uh, I'll be introducing what AR, VR, MR, and XR is. We've already talked a bit about AR, VR. MR is mixed reality, extended reality. We'll be discussing their definitions, their applications, and in some cases, if you're new to the world of metaverse and its analogs, you might even be surprised that you had been using these technologies all along, but you just weren't aware that they were called AR or that they were called VR. Next, we will head on to the software. We'll get familiar with the interface, and then we'll head on to create a project of our own. Use face tracking to create the effect, and we'll make sure that the project also necessitates the use of the patch editor. The patch editor is nothing but just an alternative to the code editor which we use for developing any kind of effect or experience. Lastly, when we are done with our effect, we'll see how to preview and test our effect. effects. And one thing about Spark AR is that it's easy to preview effects with it, to preview it, to publish them. Like, if I talk about my journey with AR/VR, the primary software which I use is Unity 3D, and it is a really powerful software in terms of what can be done on it and where those experiences can be employed. However, for someone who has not used any such software before, I guess Spark AR has an upper hand because it is extremely easy to use. And one thing about Spark AR is people even have the option to um, not know any coding language to use Spark AR. You can create effects that are built just using patch editors, and that's one great thing about it. Another great thing about is that it bridges the gap between the user and the people who use the experience or the effect which has been created. Like you just have to publish that effect, and anybody from any part of the world can use that effect. So now we'll head on to the third interaction. So first of all, augmented reality. I'm sure everybody over here has heard what AR is, through the game of Pokemon Go, right? Like, even if you don't know what AR is, you definitely know what Pokemon is, what Pokemon Go was. This was the game which took the world by storm, right? So, the technology which allows a digital object like a Pikachu in case of Pokemon Go to augment in your very own surroundings is known as augmented reality. So, it just superimposes a virtual object or maybe a digital object on the user's real world surroundings. And this is what is being used today. So AR is being largely used for retail purposes, which have put this use as it emphasizes on the try before you buy principle. There is the Swedish furniture conglomerate by the name of IKEA, and they have this app. So what the customers have to do is they just have to install this application, and they have to just point their phone at the particular position where they want to place the furniture, and they can just test this furniture before buying it. If you might ask, how is this being accomplished? This gets accomplished through the phone camera. The phone camera looks for feature points. These feature points could be edges of a surface, they could be the vertices, they could be special patterns on a surface. The camera takes hold of these patterns of these feature points, and then it augments the digital object on those very same feature points. Similarly, Rolex allows its customers to try watches digitally. Nike allows its customers to try sneakers digitally. Adidas, which is a makeup brand, so even that uses AR. And it's not just restricted to retail. You can find merchandising point between art and technology. Like AR is often considered as an amalgamation point between art and technology. Like this over here is Vincent Van Gogh's home, and this has been recreated through like somebody, they are just pointing their phone on a road, and this is what is being augmented right over there. And next, which is the most famous example, and people often using filters, but they don't know that Instagram filters or Facebook filters are nothing but AR. So today also we'll be creating something of this sort, an AR filter, and these are the applications. And as I said before, the transition from mobile phones and laptops to completely screenless experiences, this is something which would be going through AR classrooms or maybe AR training initiatives. So next, let us head on to virtual reality, and let us try to understand how it is different from augmented reality. So in augmented reality, the surroundings of the user, they remain completely the same. It's just a digital object that gets augmented onto those surroundings. On the other hand, in virtual reality, the entire surrounding is simulated to look like something else. So it's just like you put a headset, which is like more professionally called a head mounted display, and once you worn it, you're transported to a completely new world. that is, your surrounding is simulated to look like something else. So this is virtual reality. Again, it has a lot of applications in the field of sports. I'm also aware of some really popular transport companies who are now looking to train their employees through AR, VR, and XR technologies. Certain companies have been using this VR technology for training their army men. Like, obviously, it is better to train people in a virtual surroundings, as in case of VR, rather than having to actually shoot fighter planes, right? So that's where it comes handy. And if till now you've been thinking that these technologies are just restricted to recreation, that's not the case. There is this organization in the UK. They go by the name of Alzheimer's Research Center, and they came up with this project called A Walk Through Dementia. So, what this project does is it gives people like you and me, people who have been lucky enough to not suffer through dementia, they give us the opportunity to get to walk through this disease, right? So they give us the opportunity to go for grocery shopping, or they get to go for grocery shopping, or they get to go to a supermarket, or maybe just cross a road as someone with dementia. And like the entire purpose of this project is to generate empathy and use this technology to a good cause. So that was it about VR. And I think I've broadened the perspective here that it's not just restricted to games and entertainment and just roller coaster rides. It is much more than that. The next term is extended reality. And before I talk about extended reality, there is this another term which I would like to discuss, which is mixed reality. And mixed reality refers to confluence of AR and VR. When these two technologies come together, they form mixed reality. And extended reality, on the other hand, is an extrapolation. It is like an umbrella term for all these terms. It is an umbrella term for AR, VR, as well as MR. Uh, is there any kind of lag? Is there any kind of network issue? All right. So, like, I'm assuming that there is nothing wrong, and I'm just continuing. So, extended reality also holds the scope of any technology which is similar to AR, VR, and the metaverse, which might arise in the future. So, like, that technology would also come under extended reality. And if one wants an example of extended reality, the metaverse is nothing but XR. In metaverse, they say you'll be able to interact with the digital objects, like here, Zuckerberg, he's just changing the avatars with just the finger movements. So this is nothing but XR, as it is facilitating a very large amount of interaction with digital objects. So that was it about the definitions and the applications. And I guess we've talked a little bit about Spark AR as well, and we'll talk a little more about it. So it is owned by Facebook, and as I said, it is extremely easy to use. Does not require any prior coding knowledge, as it can be substituted with the knowledge of Patch Editor. It has a very vibrant and vital asset library as well. And the best part about Spark AR, which like I like the most about it, is the Spark AR Hub. So what the Spark AR Hub does is, like, once you've published your filter, it gives you an insight on that filter, like how well that filter is doing, how many people have clicked on it, or how many people have captured a photograph using it, how many people have shared it. And like, once people start making reels using those filters, it also gives you an insight of how they are engaging with that filter, how many times they return to that filter. So that was it about Spark AR. And now I think we should head on to the software and create our first Spark AR effect. So what we'll be doing today, as you can see in the picture, the face has been split into two quadrants, and there is this image which is being shown from the bottom. This image, I would like to call it an alpha mask, as people also often call it. So what we'll be doing today is we'll be splitting the face into four quadrants, and again we'll be like revealing an alpha mask from below. We might also try certain other things like adding a snowfall effect or something like that to like just get to know more and more stuff about Spark AR. Uh, there are also a lot of communities which are working really actively to promote Spark AR, especially in India. But I guess we should head to them later. And over there, I'll talk about these communities, and I'll also talk about an initiative by my community, which is a hackathon. So I guess we should head to the software. So this is Spark AR Studio, and right now I'm opening a blank project. So I'd like to know if my screen is visible. I hope it is. All right then. So this is Spark AR and this is its interface. So let's just get familiar with the interface. Now for people who have used Unity 3D or maybe who have used the Unreal Engine, Spark AR would be a piece of cake for them. However, for someone who is totally new, they would need to know each and everything about what is happening over here. And since this workshop has been kept in mind, has been organized keeping the beginners in mind, I will explain each and everything from the very scratch. So, this thing, what we are seeing right now is the viewport. And viewport, what it does is whatever we create, it will be visible over here. Like the entire creation process will be taking place over here. So this is the viewport, and you can zoom in and zoom out into it using the scroll wheel, and you can use the right click button and just navigate through it like this. The next is the scene panel. Now, what the scene panel does is whatever objects whatever objects are there that make up the effect, those objects are visible in the scene panel over here. We have the device in the camera which cannot be removed, but we have these other elements as well that can be removed, and we can add or remove other objects as well from here, but device and camera, they always remain here. If somebody might ask what is the purpose of these lights, so these lights, they do they solve the purpose of offering realistic lighting to 3D objects in the viewport. And what is the difference between ambient light and direction light? Ambient light provides a constant amount of light in the scene, whereas the directional light, it can be manipulated, it can be rotated, it can be like scaled to focus and to throw light on, say, any one particular object in the scene. So that is the difference between them. Also, we can add objects in the scene by this add button. We can add a face tracker, we can add a plane tracker over here, or we can use the add button from the menu bar and we can add anything from here. So since our project involves a face tracker, we will be adding it over here. So if someone might ask, what is a face tracker? A face tracker, it tracks the movement of the space, and whatever effect you create as a child of the face tracker, its entire movement is in relation to your face. Like, let's just see this with an example. Say I want to add a 3D object over here. Let's say I go to a 3D object and I head on to the desktop, and I have this model of a flying hummingbird over here. So let's just import it into Spark AR. I guess it will take a couple of seconds. So once that object has been added over here, like it is over here, and it is really small, we can see it in the scene. But right now, this 3D model of the bird or this object is totally independent of the face. But once we move it onwards over here, now it is a child of the face, and now you can see it is moving in respect to the face. I guess it is really small right now, so I can scale it up a bit. So what we can do is we can pause the simulation from here, and from here we can just scale it like this. This is the move tool. We can just move it like this from like again for people who have experience with AR softwares, they are already aware of this because all these things are like really prominently used in Unity and Unreal. But for people who are new to the domain, this explanation is for them. We can also set these scale or the rotation or the angle from the inspector panel. This is the inspector panel. Let's say the position of the hummingbird right now is 0, 0.1825, and 0. Let's say I want to move it to 0.2. So that's how we can move it upwards. Like we can either use these controls over here or we can use the inspector panel. So that was about it. Now, what is the asset panel? The asset panel over here is again used to add the objects which are in the project. The difference between the asset panel and the scene panel is that the scene panel only contains those objects which are already there in the scene. However, if we add something to the asset and we don't add it to the scene, it will still be there in the project file. But the only thing is that it is not there in the viewport. So that is the difference between these two things. And we can just pause the simulation here, we can play it from here, we can stop it from here. And this thing is known as the simulator. Here we can just test whatever effect we are creating right then and there. See, like I place the image here, and this is what the camera would see. Like if I open the front camera, if I export this effect in a front camera, this is what I would see right now. And the default setting of the simulator is simulate orbit. We can change it to simulate touch. Now there are certain effects which require you to click on the play button, to start the effect. So we can just simulate touch. Also, we can also test the kind of device we want to create the effect for. Like, say, I want to create this effect for an iPad. So I can just move here, and here we have the simulation for the iPad. Say, I want to create it for an iPhone 8 Plus. So here it is again. So these were a couple of things about the interface. One more thing is we can change the simulation from here, and we can also change it to our own face. Like we can test the effects which we are creating right now on our own face. I guess it is again taking a little bit of time. So let's just head back to it. So from here we can use any kind of simulation that we like. Then we have one more thing. This is the workspace. And workspace contains these two really important things, which is the patch editor and the console. Now let's just go to the show patch editor option. This is the patch editor. And as I said before, this is like an alternative to a code editor. And it is here that we create all kind of patches as we'll be creating ahead. So the shortcut is Control Alt P. From here it will vanish, and from here it will come again. Let's just say you want to see what a patch looks like. So I will just drag it over here to show what a patch looks like. So these are patches, and this is a patch editor, and it is here where we build the logic of the effect. So right now we do not need it, so I'm deleting it. And then we have the console. So as I guess Param also mentioned, and as I also mentioned before, there are certain effects which you can create just using the patch editor. And there are then certain effects which require you to use a little bit of JavaScript. So those effects which are built using JavaScript or TypeScript, whenever we run them, they can the this console will always open directly. So that's the purpose which the console serves. So I guess that's all about the interface, and I guess now we should just head on to creating the effect that we want to create. This hummingbird was just for the purpose of demonstration, so I would delete it right now, and I would delete it from the assets as well. And now we'll go on to create our very first project. So since we are using a face tracker, uh, I guess the first thing which we need to add apart from it is a face mesh. So what does a face mesh looks like? this is a face mesh, and as you can see, it is already a child of the face tracker. Now what I'll be doing over here is I'll be creating duplicates of this face mesh. You can either duplicate it, or maybe you can just use the Control plus D option to create certain face meshes. Now, if someone might ask why we've created 5 face meshes, the reason is the first face mesh would serve as the alpha mask that will be built when your face splits open into 4 quadrants, and the rest of the 4 face meshes are the quadrants of the face. So, like for the sake of convenience, I will just rename it to alpha mask. So, this is the lowermost layer, and this is, let's say, the uppermost face mesh. So that's about it. Now we'll head on to creating a texture of these face meshes. Let's see what a texture looks like. Let's extract a texture by clicking on texture extraction. To learn why we have done this and what is being accomplished by this, we'll just return to it after a while. We'll just need to create something, a little bit of something on Photoshop. So I'll just head on to Photoshop and I'll just create maybe a square page. For Photoshop is like a really good complementary software. Like it really comes handy. So what I'll do here is I will just take this sheet, this white sheet, and I will create a square out of it. Let's say like this. Like this is just dividing the sheet exactly into 4 parts. Like this square, let's say it is one of the quadrants, and then I will export it as a PNG. Let's say I've taken this folder by the name of face quadrants. So I can call this top left, as this quadrant is on the top left. Now I'll be repeating this process over and over again for the rest of the 3 quadrants. So again, I'll be just exporting the PNG, and as anticipated, I will just name it top right. Same process again, and again I'll just rename it to bottom right. And then to bottom left. Now we will see what purpose these textures are solving once we head into Spark AR. So what we'll do is we've created these 4 textures, or let's say we've created these 4 squares, white colored squares. We'll just export them. We'll just import them from a computer. Say, and that's how I've. You can also just drag and drop them right into the assets panel over here. And now we'll learn what we did when we extracted this texture. So let's say I take this face mesh. What I have to do is I have to assign a material to this face mesh. So I'll just click on it. And here in the inspector panel, there's this materials tab. I'll just create a material for this face mesh 4. Right now, I'm assuming that this face mesh 4 is, let's say, the top right quadrant of the face. So for the sake of simplicity, I will also just name this material to be face mesh 4. And once I've done that, what I'll do is I'll just choose a texture here. This texture would be the initial texture which we created, this face tracker 0 texture. And once I've done that, And I'll change the shader type to, now the reason why we did so is because when the shader type is standard, there was this dark tinge, and this kind of tinge is kind of a natural. So in order to get rid of this unnatural tinge, I just changed it to the flat kind. The alpha option just allows us to add another texture. So once we've ticked on this alpha option, we will assign the material which we had imported, which was top. We have one quadrant and we've assigned a material to it. Now we'll be repeating this process over and over again for the rest of the three quadrants. Let's say I go to the face mesh 3, I assign a material to it, I rename it to face mesh 3 for the purpose of simplicity. Once I've created this shade type to flat, I will change the texture to top left, and I'll click on the alpha option to add the top left. What went wrong? Something. All right. The here the texture which had to be assigned. All right. So this is really important. Here, when we're talking about the main texture which is to be assigned, it always has to be the one that was created beforehand, because this texture would be extracting the color of the skin and the surface, whereas this mesh would be creating the grid or maybe the quadrant kind of effect. So what we have to do here is we have to, the texture which will be assigned here is this texture, and as before, from alpha we have taken the top left texture. So as you can see, we've created these two successful quadrants. There's a slight line in between, and I guess it's a good indication to show that we are successfully creating the quadrants. Then we'll head to the face mesh 2, and then we'll repeat the same process over again. We'll create a new material for it. We'll give it the name of face mesh 2. Once we've done that, we've changed the shader type to flat. We'll assign the old texture to it, and once we've ticked alpha, we will give it the bottom right texture. So now we are just left with one quadrant which needs to be assigned, and we'll repeat the same process with it over and over again. This is face mesh 1, just like on, and after clicking on the alpha option, we will get the bottom left option. So that is how we've created these four quadrants now. And however, these four quadrants remain null and void if they are not animated or if we do not add interaction to them. So to add interaction to them, we'll now head on to the most interesting part of the project, which is the patch editor. And it is here that we'll be building the logic for the effect. So what we'll do is, in order to build the logic for the effect, we'll simply be dragging this face tracker into the patch editor to create its patch. So we can see that we have a face finder patch over here. We have a face tracker patch over here. We have a face tracker patch over here. The right now, it can only be achieved by these two. So we exactly do not need this thing right now. So we can remove it. The next thing which we have to decide is that what will be the trigger or the cue for this effect. Let's say, when will the face or the forehead split? Will they split when the user blinks, or will they split when the user opens her face? So that needs to be decided. Once that is decided, we will create a patch for that. So let's say I want these four quadrants to split once the user opens his or her face. So what I'll do is I'll look for the mouth open patch. Here I have the mouth open patch, and I've added this patch. And once we have added this mouth open patch, now definitely there is this face tracker, there's this face finder, we have added a queue. Now we need to tell the patch editor that what needs to follow the queue. Like you've taken the queue, but what action should follow this queue? So in order to find that, we will use animation. Like obviously we need to animate those four grids, right? We need to animate those four quadrants to split. So for that we'll add the animation patch, and this pulse force will get added automatically. So We need that, and that is totally fine. Now, another thing is, I like, for my effect, I want that when I open my mouth, the face splits into four quadrants, and when I close it back, the quadrants come back to their original position. So for this purpose, we will use this reverse option over here, and we will connect it with the off part of the pulse. So what will happen now is that the quadrants will split into four parts once the user opens his or her mouth, and then they will come back together when they close the mouth. So that's the purpose of it. Now we have established a finder over here, we've established the cue, we've established the animation. Now we need to tell what kind of animation we'll be using. So in order to do that, we need to create a transition batch. So once we've added this transition batch, now we'll be adding movement to our effect. So let's say I want to animate, or like I want to add transition to the top right quadrant. So that top right quadrant was face mesh 4. So what I'll do is I'll select face mesh 4, and I'll create a patch for its position. Once I've created a patch for its position, let's just see what happens. Now you saw that. So the user, she opened her mouth and the patch just flew in the air. And why did it happen? Because the start coordinates for this patch were 000 and the end coordinates were 111. But the problem is that this patch is just flowing too far and we do not want it to go that far. So what we'll do is we'll just reduce it to something like 0.05, and then we'll see how the effect would look like. Now let's see what will happen when she'll open her face. I guess that was a better transition, that was smoother, and you could just make out that yes, something was happening, some transition was taking place. So this was being accomplished through the transition batch. Now we'll do the same thing for the rest of these three quadrants as well. The process is really simple. Again, I'll just head on to the transition patch. Once I've added that patch, I'll go on to the face mesh 3. I'll create a position for it, and again I'll assign the same values, and let's see what happens. So again, it flew really far away, and now we've changed the values. Let's just see how it proceeds. See, so the quadrant is getting animated, there is a transition, but the problem lies in the direction of the transition. The coordinates, they need to be readjusted, right? We wanted to move towards the left side of the x-axis. So what we'll do here is we'll replace the 0.05 with minus 0.05, and then we'll see how the project proceeds. So now I guess it's better, right? It is moving in the upward direction and it is moving towards the left direction, which is exactly how we wanted it to go. So this has been done. We'll repeat the same process for the rest of the three patches, the rest of the two patches. Face mesh 2, we create a position patch for it. And we'll again use the same values over here. And we'll modify the coordinates as per our convenience. See, now what is happening is it is moving in this direction and it is going like extremely forward. So what we need to do is we need to move it towards the right direction of the x-axis. So we'll remove this negative sign and we'll just add 0.05 here. This is just simple coordinate geometry. Like you just need to have the reference in your mind and you just need to assign the correct sign to each coordinate. The same process will be repeated with face mesh 1. We create a position patch for it, and we want it to move towards the left, so a minus sign over here. The same minus sign would be used here, and then 0.05 again. So now let's see how the project proceeds when she opens her mouth. So I guess it is working pretty smoothly right now. The only thing is that we haven't assigned any texture to the alpha mask. What we are seeing right now is just a face mesh. So in order to assign a texture to this alpha mask, what I'll do is I'll create a material for it, a new material. I will rename this material to alpha mask again for the sake of convenience. And once it has been done, I will assign a new texture to it. So right now that texture is not in my project, so let's say I go for a new texture. I go to my desktop and I have this mask, so I will just assign this mask to it, and here it is. Now we can see it that when the user opens her mouth, the face is being split into 4 quadrants, and this alpha mask is being revealed from the bottom. So that was about the effect. There are a couple more things which we can do to make the effect a little better. Let's say I select this and this, like I select all the 4 quadrant meshes, and I uncheck this option as well as this option. Let's see the difference now. Once we've unchecked it, we can see that in the quadrants, the eye and the mouth is also coming. And once we check it back, let's see the difference now. So this difference is being established by checking or unchecking these options. So whichever way you deem your project to be fit, you can either check them or uncheck them. So that was it about the effect. Now I guess it's pretty simple to create, and the transitions were clear as well. When it comes to the patch editor, this is like just a countable number of patches, right? There is so much more which can be done. Like instead of this mouth open, we could have used the blink option, or we could have used maybe a head nod. So when the user would nod his or her head, then the quadrants would split into 4 parts. So we could have done anything of that sort. So that way, Spark AR is really extensive. It is really user friendly. And let's say I'm creating a game, and that game is scoring, right? Let's say there's a person who is jumping over hurdles, and each time he or she jumps over a hurdle, the person gets a score of 10. So those kind of games require a bit of JavaScript, but effects like these, they can be created simply using the patch editor. Now we'll head on to how to test this effect. Like right now, we are just viewing it on a simulator. What if you want to see how this project would look like on your mobile phone, right? So for that, what you can do is you can just this is the preview option. Right now, it is showing an error, which is no experience selected. To resolve this, I can just go to select experience option. I can add an experience, and this would be a sharing experience. Like very recently, Meta or Spark AR, they came out with video calling experiences, and these experiences also, they also inculcate JavaScript. But apart from that, sharing experiences are relatively simple to create. So once I've added the kind of experience, I can just send a test link to my application, to my Instagram or to my Facebook. So that is how a test link would be generated on my application. Another alternative which can be taken is installing the Spark AR Player. Now, Spark AR Player is an application which, if you install in your mobile phone, and if you connect your mobile phone to your laptop through a USB cable, you would be able to directly send this effect to your mobile phone. So right now it says that we've sent a notification to Instagram, open the app to test your effect. So if I would open my effect, I would be able to just test it like any other effect. Once you're done with the testing part, and if you're satisfied with the effect, what you can do is you can publish it. And like that is the best part of it about publishing an effect. So let's see what happens when we publish an effect. There are certain size constraints when it comes to Spark AR. Like you cannot use assets which have a lot of size. So here, luckily, all the file size requirements are being met, and all the capabilities are also being met. So since I want to publish a new effect, I will just click on the upload button. And it is saying Spark Your Hub will open in your browser when the upload is finished, which is what will happen. So let's just wait for a couple of seconds for the upload to finish. So this is Spark AR Hub, and this is what it looks like. Here you can just give your effect a unique name. This is the AR file. You can choose the platforms where you want to publish that effect. If you only want to restrict it to Instagram, if you only want to restrict it to Facebook. So once it is published, you can add you can add categories and keywords. You have to add a demo video as well. And once it is published, once it is submitted, it is sent for review, and that review usually takes place really quickly, and then your effect is visible on your let's say the dashboard panel of Spark AR Hub. And it does give a lot of insight into, let's say if I open Spark AR Hub right now, it would give a lot of insight into my previous effects. So if I go to the manage effects option, over here I would be able to see how many times my effects have been opened, or how many times they've been shared. So this is how it functions, right? You can get the number of impressions, you can even restrict the visibility after a point, the number of captures, everything is visible over here. So that is how Spark AR Hub works. So I guess that was it. uh, when it is confined to the software of it, we can obviously delve into a lot of Spark AR later. We can learn how to add like even more transitions. We can learn to create games using Spark AR. Like it's not just filters and effects. Like we can create total games with it. And very recently, Meta also introduced hand tracking and body tracking features. Like just right now, we used face tracking. This can be replaced by hand tracking and body tracking as well. So I was talking about the different communities which work for promoting Spark AR in India. And one of these communities is Reskill. You can visit their website, and they do conduct a lot of hackathons, which are related to Spark AR. And the best part about this community is that they do not want you to like create exorbitantly beautiful effects or exorbitantly mind-numbing effects. They just want you to get started with the software. So the entire point of these communities is to just like pull more people into this domain, to let them know the beauty of it, and to let them know that how easy it is to like make your effect reach anyone across the globe by just publishing that effect on Spark AR Hub. And whatever hackathons they organize, they do send swags for just submitting your effect. So that's the plus point of it. There is this special community of AR creators on Facebook. There is this community which has been restricted for people of India only. So this is about it. This is about Spark AR. And please do let me know about your queries or anything of that sort, or else I would proceed to uh, Param, if you could just like intimate me of any queries if there are any.
Yes, yes, we have lots of questions for you, Harshita, if you would like to.
Uh, all right, all right. So I'll just like stop the screen share right now for the queries.
Thank you very much, Harshita. Really lovely tutorial. I myself got to learn a lot, and the participants seemed to enjoy the workshop a lot. We have lots of questions for you, so time for the Q&A. We'll start with the questions that we have inside the chat. So, Rishabh Pal says, do we have to remember all of the patches
The
in the patch
patches of the
editor?
patch editor. See, you do not have to remember them. It's just that when you start creating effects over and over again, you will subconsciously get a hold on them. So that's how you just gain a hold on it. You do not need to like memorize that what patch does what. Obviously, there is this documentation. Spark AR has this amazing documentation which you can always refer to. And once that documentation has been referred to, once you've read it, you learn more about it. But there is no need to memorize any patch. You just have to just gradually create projects, and you'll come to know about more patches.
Okay. And
So I hope that
the
solves
second
the
question
query,
that we have
Abhishek.
is, We have another question that says, to use any patch editor, do we have to make four coordinates every single time?
No, I guess this is Gargi's question. See, here the effect involved the creation of four patches, or let's say four transitions, because it involved four coordinates, right? That is why we had to create these four transition patches, and we had to assign different coordinates to each one of them. Had the effect been nothing but just a simple, let's say you are opening your eyes, let's say you're blinking your eyes, and you just see a text rotating around your head. In that case, you do not need to create coordinates for it, right? You just need to play with the rotation of that text. So this patch configuration or this patch link, this was specific only for this particular effect because it involves such kind of thing. Let's say I was only splitting the space into two quadrants, then I would only need two transition patches and two sets of coordinates. So I
Okay,
guess that's
Harshita.
what's right.
And we have a couple of more questions for you. So, you just showed us how to use the Spark AR graphical interface to make effects. The domain of augmented and virtual reality is definitely much bigger than that. And we need to do a lot of programming at times to develop certain things. So, what programming languages do you find most abundantly used in the field of AR, VR, MR, and XR?
See, it depends. It totally depends on the software that is being used. Like if you're using Unity 3D, the primary language is C sharp, and same is the case with Unreal Engine. Although it also allows you to use C++. For Spark AR, if I'm just talking about Spark AR, the primary language that is used is JavaScript or TypeScript. But as you said, like I totally second that point, that whatever we discussed today, that is just like a grain of sand in like an entire beach or whatever. So this was just like, this is just a good way to begin. Like Spark is just a good software to begin with because once you get familiar with the interface, you know how to navigate through Unity 3D and through Unreal.
Hmm.
So that's
And
what makes it really easy.
you
Yes.
just showed us how to make an effect using the patch editor, which didn't involve us to write any code till now.
Cool.
So, according to you, what can we not achieve in Spark AR without writing code? For what do we absolutely need to write code?
See, as I said, for games that involve a very typical scoring system, they need code to be written. We also discussed video calling experiences, right? Whatever we created right now, this can only be used by a single person, right? You cannot just video call your friends and you cannot tell them, "Ski, let's use this effect on a video call." This cannot be done. So for video calling experiences, code is must. You have to code for that. So
Hmm.
like if I talk
Okay.
only about Spark AR, um, that is those are the things where code is absolutely necessary.
Okay. Now we are going to have some trivia questions for you, so be prepared. Um, if
Right.
you had the opportunity to be the part of the development team of Spark, if you were the one of the people who created Spark AR, the application, how different would it be from what it is today?
All right. So one limitation of Spark here is that whatever experiences we create on it, uh, they can only be used to the test link that is being generated, or after the generation of the link, after the effect has been published on Spark AR Hub, right? Before that, it cannot be used. So if I was the creator, I would facilitate the use of the effect that is being created on much more wider platforms and not just to the use of links.
Hmm, I
So,
see.
had that been in my power, that would be the case.
Okay. The second trivia question that we have for you is, do you think that in future, virtual reality can allow drivers to work from home?
Yes, I do believe that VR will allow vehicle drivers to work from home. And the reason why I'm saying yes is because some of my seniors at college, they have a very similar project to this. I do not know the extent to which that project has been completed, but they were working on something really similar. And that project, like again, it was built on Unity 3D, and it did facilitate work virtual driving. It was like coupled with IoT and stuff. But so that is why I believe that yes, VR will facilitate virtual driving ahead in future.
Okay. And the last question that we have for you is, you mentioned the metaverse. What would you say is the best part of the metaverse according to you?
The best part of the metaverse. So, firstly, metaverse, as I said before, it is a really controversial topic, right? It is not. There have not been all good things about metaverse when we talk about it. But from a very personal point of view, I believe that metaverse would be changing the world for better. I do not believe like every technology, even cell phones have their cons, right? But still, they've changed our world so much for the better. So same is the case with metaverse. And for me, people say that once you're a part of metaverse, you would lose human connection. I believe it would be the contrary. I believe that a completely screenless experience where I can establish human connection with someone, that would be my most favorite part of the metaverse.
I see. Thank you very much for the answers, Harshita. It was a really nice workshop. We'll share the presentation and the effect links with the
Yeah, sure.
participants later on. Thank
Yes.
you very
Also,
much.
I wanted to
Yes,
talk about one more thing. So, as a GitHub campus expert, I'm a part of this community, which is SPEC, or Society for Promotion of Electronics Culture. And we are coming up with a really great hackathon powered by MLH and GitHub this time. So, I just urge everybody who is watching it to participate in it. I will surely share the links and the promotional content of the hackathon, and like I urge everyone to take part. The themes are really unique this time. The themes are such that they have never been targeted before. It's hunger eradication, it's climate change, it's cyberbullying. So I believe these themes are the need of the hour. So I would share the website. I will share the registration links, and everybody, please do participate.
thank you very much, Harshita. Please share the link with us. I'll add that to the video description as well as the workshop document, which we will share with the with the participants at the end. And we can already see a stream of compliments coming in the live chat. So well done, I would say. Thank you very much, Harshita. We'll be very happy to have you again at our community someday.
Yeah,
It
sure,
was
Param.
really nice.
Likewise, and thank you. I hope I was able to add a little amount of value to somebody's life through this workshop. So let's see how it goes. Here's to a lot of learning that lies ahead in terms of AR, VR, in terms of Spark, in terms of Unity.
Mhm. Thank you very much, Harshita. And thank you everyone for joining. See you all next time. We'll be having a couple of more workshops on rather fundamental topics and maybe new programming languages as well in the coming days. So make sure to attend if you find them interesting. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Goodbye.